Hey there, Matt Walsh from mattwalshhomes.com and academyhomebuyers.com. We are coming out today with the final video in our installment on becoming a savvy seller. All right, today we're going to talk about the potential pitfalls of these alternative financing deals, and then we're going to make sure that you are confident in all of your options, okay? Like everything in life, there are potential pitfalls with just about everything, right? There's option A and option B. Something can always happen, right? But when it comes to real estate, the majority of the dangers and the pitfalls threaten the buyer. As we talked about before, when you sell property, you're giving that property and everything that belongs to it to someone else. That someone else now takes the property and everything that belongs to it, which is why we do title searches to make sure that the title and the ownership is as clean as possible. Things still happen though. So there are pitfalls when you buy property, especially when you buy properties in distress or properties from foreclosures or properties, from banks and such. There are things that may not necessarily be on the title yet, and now I own the property, and that problem comes and it becomes my problem as the buyer. As a seller, you don't have too many pitfalls. You agree to sell your house, you sell your house, you walk away. That's really it. There are some things to worry about, or not even worry about, just to be aware of when you're using the alternative financing methods that we talked about before. Okay, and we're going to discuss those right now. So what are the pitfalls? What are the possible negative outcomes of selling your home, right? So first and foremost, going through the normal methods, right? Hiring a real estate agent and selling it like normal, okay? What are the potential pitfalls? Your home might take weeks or months to sell. Even in today's market, if the house is overpriced or if there are major problems with the home, roof, HVAC, plumbing, it may take a long time to find the right buyer. And what happens with that? It costs you money. It costs you taxes, insurance, mortgage payments. That's a potential pitfall. Another one is the buyer might back out last minute, right? This happens all the time. Not so much that the buyer backs out, but the buyer loses their ability to get financing at the last minute. I would say 20 to 30% of the time it happens. And now that means you're going back to square one. So maybe it took you a month or 2 months to get that buyer. And now you've got them all set. And now you're back to square one. Not end of the world, it happens. If you're in a position where you're not being pushed for time, then you can handle it. Next is selling your home to a cash buyer, right? When I come in and give you a cash offer, this is what we're talking about. What's the potential pitfall? The contract could fall through, just like when you're selling it through an agent, leaving you to start all over again. What's the big difference? When you're selling it with an agent and you're dealing with banks and financing, the closing can take a while. It can take 2 months or 3 months for the appraisals and the surveys and the bank to get all their stuff together. That means that your deal could fall through like 2 months into it and now you're left. When you're dealing with a cash buyer, typically you find out that the deal is going bad within a couple of weeks. So you're not losing a whole lot of time. The whole purpose of going with a cash buyer is to get it done quick, right? That's 90% of the problem that we're solving, is that we're getting this deal done quick. So if the deal's not going to happen, you're going to know pretty quick. You won't lose a lot of time, but that is a potential pitfall. Now, we discussed before about selling your home, what's called subject to your existing mortgage, right? So this one, this has a bigger pitfall, right? In this case, remember we talked about how you're going to sell your home, but the mortgage is going to stay in your name for a little bit. This is because you owe so much money on your property that you can't sell it for enough to pay off your mortgage. The closing costs would take up so much that you wouldn't have any money left to pay off your mortgage. So you're going to sell your home subject to your existing mortgage. This works well 99.99% of the time. Okay. What are the pitfalls? Number one, there's two pitfalls on this one. The first pitfall is the new buyer fails to make the mortgage payments. All right. And what happens then? you will have to come in and take back your home, or the bank is going to come in and foreclose on it, and that's going to hurt your credit. That's a worst case scenario. That doesn't happen very often at all, because the person that's buying your home, the investor or the buyer buying your home subject to your existing mortgage, is now putting money into your home and fixing it up for the purpose of selling it or renting it. If they don't pay the mortgage and you take the home back, or the bank takes the home back, they lose their money. So it's important to them to pay the mortgage. That's why it's important for you to find a reputable company and not just some fly-by-night person, which we discussed about in another video. Verifying your buyer and verifying your offerer, as it was called, right? You want to make sure you're dealing with a reputable person and a reputable company. But there is no motivation, there is no benefit to not paying your mortgage, because they will lose their money. Right? The other pitfall is not common, but it's legal, and I have to mention it, right? Is that in most mortgages, like 99.9% of mortgages, there is a clause in there that's called due on sale. What that means is the mortgage company can call you up and say, you know what, you sold your house, we're calling your mortgage due, you have to pay us. I literally know hundreds of people that purchase thousands of homes like this. I'm in several investor groups, and this is the primary way they buy homes, and I've never heard of anybody where this has happened, but it can happen. The bank doesn't really want to do that. The bank doesn't want to foreclose on your home. The bank wants to make their money, and as long as someone's continuing to make the payments, they will most likely never know that you sold your home, and B, they won't really care because the money is coming in on time. But it is a potential pitfall. But you're doing this, you're selling your home subject to your existing mortgage, because you're in a position where you have to sell your home and you can't sell it through other means. So it is the best scenario, and it's actually pretty good. Like we've said before, the person paying your mortgage is giving you credit, right? So you're getting credit for on-time mortgage payments. It's actually building your FICO credit score. So the benefits far outweigh the negatives, but there are potential pitfalls, and those are the two. Another option that we talked about was selling your home with the leased option to buy. What is this? This is similar to subject to, but slightly different. A lot of tired landlords do this. What you'll do is you'll rent your home. You'll lease it out to someone for a short period of time. You'll rent it out, and that person would be your potential buyer. And you will give that buyer an option to buy. An option to buy is a legal document, right? That says that you, the buyer, will have the first option to purchase the home. I cannot sell it to someone else without offering it to you first. So what happens is the buyer will take over your house, right? Take over your property and start working on it and fixing it up and getting it ready for sale or rent. And then when that's done, they will exercise their option to buy your home. The worst case scenario here is that your new buyer, your new tenant, your investor won't pay you, and they'll have to take back the home. You'll have to take back the home. But this isn't really likely to happen. It's not like you're renting it to somebody who's going to live in there and now they're going to not pay the rent. That happens from time to time. It happens a lot. No, you're leasing it to an investor who's investing their money and trying to fix it up. So that's not going to happen. It's a worst case scenario that could, but 99.99% of the time in this scenario, what happens is your buyer, now, tenant, will come in for a few months, fix up the house, fix up the property, and get it ready to sell or to rent, and then they finance you out and they buy the home from you. It's similar to subject to, except in subject to, you're actually selling the home without the financing. Here, I'm just renting it out. And this is a common thing to do with tired landlords. A tenant moves out and destroys the property or leaves it in bad shape, and the landlord just doesn't have the money or the wherewithal to fix it. So they're used to renting, so they will lease to an investor with the option to buy, and then they close the sale later on. All right, and then we talked about the last thing was selling your home with seller financing, which I love. Greatest thing in the world, because you make more money. Okay, what is the potential pitfall? The worst case scenario is the new buyer does not pay. Potential, potential, right? And this is, you can sell your home with seller financing to anybody. It doesn't need to be an investor. You can sell it with a real estate agent and then offer seller financing. Okay. The worst case scenario is a new buyer does not pay. What happens is you will have to foreclose on the property because you actually have a lien on the property, just like a bank would. So you can foreclose on the property. This is a great option for people that have like no loans on the property, because then when the seller doesn't pay, they're not left paying off a mortgage. But the pitfall is that someone doesn't pay. Why are you selling your home? Because you need to get rid of it. And selling your home with seller financing and the ability to make a lot more money on interest outweighs the worst case scenario where you may have to just foreclose and take the property back. Now we're going to discuss your options. We're going to make sure that you understand the options that you have in front of you, right? We've discussed your actual needs, right? We went back at the beginning and talked about how you need to understand what your actual needs and wants are before you can determine if selling your home at all or to an investor is the right choice for you, right? You now understand how a cash offer is calculated. You understand some other non-traditional solutions that are available for you to sell your home. Right. Next, we discussed the potential pitfalls of each of the common purchase methods, because there are some pitfalls, although they are minor, they are there. Right now, it's time for you to weigh your options, right, and make the choice that's right for you. Okay. In real estate, there are only 4 options, right, for your property. All right. Number 1 is you can live in it, right? Number 2, you can rent it to someone else. Number 3, you can leave it vacant. Or number 4, you can sell it. That's it. Those are your choices, right? In life with real estate, you can live in it, you can rent it, you can leave it alone, or you can sell it. Each one of those has its benefits and its drawbacks. Okay? If you do not want to, or you cannot, because you can't afford to live in your home, then you must rent it, sell it, or leave it vacant. Those are your choices, right? Okay, vacant is almost always a very, very bad idea. Homes need people, right? When homes are vacant, animals, insects, bugs quickly take over, okay? A home can fall into very, very severe and very expensive disrepair after just a few months of being vacant. A small leak or a window open that someone would take care of if they were in the home left for a couple of weeks, and suddenly you have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage in your home, okay? Then there's also the potential for vagrants to break in and live there. This happens all the time, right? People notice a house that no one's living in. Teenagers go in there and they start to drink and do other things, and then other people come in. This is a huge problem, and it happens to vacant properties all the time. Banks that foreclose on properties and have them vacant, they pay companies a lot of money to drive around and check properties on a daily basis or a weekly basis and make sure that they're all fixed up and secure, and vagrants still get in. All right. Your next option is renting. All right. Renting is a very good option for many homeowners. All right. If you need to get out from under a home, right, but are somewhat financially stable otherwise, right? You're not just running for the hills because you have no money or if you lost your job. You're financially stable otherwise, you have some money. Renting can be a viable option. You need to have a little bit of money aside, because when you rent it, you're responsible for the home, and you have to be able to take care of problems that may occur, right? But renting can be a very viable option. The house, however, must be in good shape. It must be clean. It must be livable. If you have a house that's really in horrible shape, you really can't rent it. But let's just say you have a home and it's from an inheritance, and a family member died and no longer lived there, and maybe it's outdated, but it's clean and everything works well and there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe you can rent it, right? It's highly recommended that you use a professional to find and screen your tenant. Do not go out there and try and find your own tenant. A, there's laws that you have to follow, and you don't want to find yourself on the wrong side of tenant laws. And B, you want to get the right tenants, and you give yourself the best options and the best chances to find a good tenant if you use a professional tenant finder. Go to a real estate agency and do that. But renting is a very real option, if you need to get out from home and maybe you don't want to sell it right now. Maybe you think you want to keep it and you're going to, use it years from now or, in another 2 or 3 years. So you rent it out. Very real option. All right. Now let's just say you're not up for becoming a landlord. All right. Then selling your home is your next option, right? You don't want to live in it. You can't leave it vacant because that's bad. And you don't want to rent it. You don't want to become a landlord. Landlording is not a whole lot of fun, but it's beneficial financially if you want to do it. So if you don't want to do those, then selling is your next option. So you're kind of left out of options, right? So we've got to build up your mindset to understand your options, right? So we're down to selling. So your choice is selling if you don't want to do the other three things. Assuming you're not under pressure, right? And your home is remotely livable, right? It has working utilities, walls, and a roof. It doesn't need, that's really it. Your best bet is to go with an agent. Call an agent if you want. I'm licensed in Virginia and I can help you, but call anybody. You're almost always better going on the retail market because you get more eyes. More eyes, more offers, higher price. It's almost always more beneficial. But you have to have time. You have to be able to withstand the process, which involves making repairs possibly at the recommendation or the request of a bank. It involves taking care of fines or liens or any other issues that pop up on the title. And the house has to be in somewhat working order. I hate it when I see houses that are just studs on the MLS. Because the only people buying a house that's really gutted or in horrible shape are investors. And you're losing money by paying it to an agent, okay? Because, you're only selling it to the same people that would pay you cash anyway. But if it's remotely livable, you get people that come in and say, all right, this is going to be our forever home, and we're going to fix it up. And then we're going to live there. You'll get the most money from that. But chances are, if you're reading this book or you're watching these videos, you're under some sort of pressure to sell your home, okay? You're suffering a divorce. You're behind on taxes and you have tax liens. You're facing foreclosure, right? You're dealing with an inheritance now with multiple heirs, right? Nothing brings out the worst in people than death in a family. I'll tell you all about my own story one day. Probably not, but I can tell you it stinks. Inheritance with multiple heirs. The longer this property stays unsold, the more people are fighting about it, all right? Forced relocation from work or military, incarceration, it happens, right? Sickness, death, all right? A vacant home in danger of squatters, the list goes on. If you're in one of these situations or facing one of these situations, right? You probably are not in the real estate agent realm. You need to get rid of it a bit quicker, all right? If you continue on your current path, what will happen? Are you going to start missing mortgage payments? Will the estate be unable to close, causing problems with the heirs? All right. Will you become subject to judgments, liens, garnishments? Is the town sending you letters now because the lawn is too high? Are there problems with the house because it's been vacant and now there's a leak in the ceiling and people are getting in? Many times a fast and simple sale is the right prescription. Right? If you sell your home by any of the above mentioned methods and were no longer burdened by it, would it make you feel better? Would it provide you relief? Right? If the answer to this question is yes, then selling is the right answer. On a personal note, I had a rental property. It was our first one, the first thing that got us into investing and opened my eyes to the world of real estate investment. It was a house in Pennsylvania. I bought it with minimal money down, and it's an old house and it had tenants in it, and the owner was a slum landlord, for lack of a better term. It was a complete mess. So we went in, we did some work, and let me tell you, it was the biggest headache of my life. Every month there was a problem with the house, and because I had gotten a very, very high leverage loan, there wasn't enough money coming in every month to absorb the problems that were going on in the house, and I sold it last year. The relief. It wasn't the end of the world. I was breaking even some months. Some months I had to give a little bit of money, but it really wasn't covering. But it was just stress. If getting rid of the home and selling it provides you relief, then the answer to your question is, should I sell it, is yes. Okay. None of the aforementioned alternative financing methods are bad, right? None of them are bad, and all of them are very, very popular. each suits a purpose and provides an outcome that is significantly better than the outcome that will happen if you continue on your current path. And that is where you have to define what you want. This is where you have to understand, your options and say, this option here is better than the option I'll have by following the current path. And then you can rest easy knowing you made the right decision, whatever it is. Renting it out, selling it, keeping it, subject to your existing mortgage, cash offer, whatever the case may be. If you understand your options and you understand that this option is better than that option, then you can rest easy knowing you made the right decision because you are now a savvy seller. If you would like to discuss your own situation anywhere in the country, even though I work mostly in Virginia, anywhere in the country, please feel free to call or email me. All right, my contact information is below the book or below the video, wherever you're seeing this. All right, you will receive information, you will receive guidance, and you will receive an offer to purchase your home. And you will not be obligated to anything. You will simply get information. And with information, the world can change. All right, until next time, continue being a savvy seller and have a great day.